What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth podcast, where I, Kyle, from Kyle Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? This episode of the podcast was super interesting with a really cool guest with a very unique and niche business in Massachusetts. Renee's story was awe-inspiring, and her company is like no other. In this episode, we get into how networking and building relationships changes lives, the unreal power of finding a niche that you love, learning from your clients, and much, much more. In this episode, we talked a ton about entrepreneurism, and I hope you enjoy. Let's jump right into the episode. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 29 of the Creating Wealth podcast. Today, I get the great pleasure of chatting with Renee Sullivan. Renee is a super cool entrepreneur and hiring consultant for small business owners in the trades, in particular, the HVAC field. What's going on, Renee? How's everything going? What's new?
Everything's going awesome. What's new is I'm totally in demand right now.
Perfect. That's
um,
awesome.
yes,
You definitely can't beat that.
no. Mm-mm.
So to kind of jump right in, if you could kind of tell us a little about, kind of what you do, about your company and, kind of its backstory, kind of
Sure.
like the areas you cover,
Yeah,
what's kind of your story?
I'll be happy to. So my story is um, my company's called ALA Services, and it was started because I belong to a networking group called BNI. And at the time, I was consulting in a different capacity. I was consulting with internet marketers, but I was looking for a way to expand on that. And I was not really sure what direction to take. And I was having some challenges, and I was speaking to one of the people in my BNI chapter,
Mhm.
and we were just kind of going over some of the challenges that we were hearing in our BNI community about business owners who were struggling to find help. And instead of trying to come up with, okay, so maybe I know some people who they can hire, um, we kind of got to the bottom of the fact that I was in a position to actually be able to help these business owners with their hiring, because in a past career, I actually was an administrator in a school facility where I was actually doing the interviewing and the hiring for special education staff. So I had a little bit of that background, and it just the stars seemed to align.
Mhm.
And basically we came up with the idea of, like, you are the perfect person to actually help with these business owners who are challenged with not having the right amount of time to find the right person, not finding the right people, not knowing where to go with that. So with that idea, I literally said, that's a great idea. I don't know how I'm going to actually do it, but I'm going to do it because it's a great idea. And the next day, literally, I went to my town and got a business um, certificate saying, okay, I have this company and this is what I'm going to do. And it just literally started from there. Some of my first clients were people in my BNI. At that time, I didn't have the niche of the HVAC. Um, it just happened a few months later, I can reconnected with one of my friends who is in the HVAC industry, and he encouraged me to go the route of HVAC. He's like, there's such a need, and not just the time factor. um, they just the people in the trades, in particular the HVAC industry, they don't necessarily know how to find initially, their office people. They're
Mhm.
used to the trades and doing that aspect of things. So I was in a position to really start helping them. What ended up happening, though, over that year, is I found more of the HVAC business owners saying, okay, you found me my operations manager, you found me my office person, can you help me find some technicians now? um,
Sure.
so it just so happened that I started to get really more involved in that industry, and I've developed a real passion for the industry, just getting to know and network with more HVAC owners. And my strategy, if you want me to go into that more, as far as that is I've made connections with a few of the technical schools now. So
Hmm.
now I'm working at, okay, who are the recent graduates that you have? And I'm starting to place them into, really good companies that I feel that are a good fit. And my whole process is getting to know not just the business owners themselves, but who are those applicants, who are those people looking for jobs, and where are they going to be a good fit. My territory, I've started out in central Massachusetts,
Hmm.
but to be honest, the way that I do things, I've expanded more into Massachusetts, but I literally now have a client in Texas. I've worked with I've worked with a business owner who was an HVAC owner who had bought another type of business in Florida. So I actually helped him find a manager for that business. So um, I've been able to expand beyond that, but for the most part, a lot of my clients are in the central Massachusetts or sometimes in Middlesex County. But I can expand beyond that, depending on where the need is and who I'm connected to.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible.
Hmm.
Especially to just kind of like find the concept for that business through, doing something that you love, like the networking and everything,
Yep.
and just like blowing it up, you know what I mean? And just taking it from like 0 to 100. And
That's
now
literally what I did. It went from zero to okay, find a niche, and I just kind of took off in that direction. And it's really, I've been in demand lately. I've had to actually tell some HVAC business owners, I can't help you just yet. I'm helping with this person right now in this territory, and I work on integrity. So if I know that I'm working with an HVAC owner and it's in a certain territory, I'm not going to take on another client in a very close territory because I just don't feel it's the right thing to do. So
yeah,
I've had people wait a month or so.
yeah.
Yeah.
That really is incredible though. There's a couple things that I want to kind of get into just because like I love how like, like you said, like niche this is. Like
Yep.
is is it kind of like a safe assumption that like you don't really have a lot of other people like doing this kind of thing? Like
I'm finding out that there really aren't a lot of people who do what I do in this niche. I
really
actually was
cool.
speaking with a branding expert, and I'm actually working on branding and rebranding and that kind of stuff. And she's been doing some research and talking me through some of these things. And she's like, "There's really no one, at least in this area, that has a niche like you and is doing things the way that you're doing." So I'm really finding that out, and it's nice to know um, that I can serve the industry the way that I can.
Yeah, that really is incredible. That's that's really cool. So how was kind of like, everything I guess going on, with like the virus and stuff? Like how has that kind of impacted you? Like have you, had a lot more demand for work, because of like people leaving and stuff, or how has that kind of worked out?
It's worked out in different directions. I
Hmm.
can tell you last year when this all first hit,
Yep.
um, there was a bit of a pause because a lot of business owners really didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
They thought they may have had to lay people off. Um, and they did lay people off. They had some people who couldn't come back because they had kids and they had to take care of school. So
Yeah.
I had to you know, I had to help them fill that role with someone else. So I had a pause for a little bit. So like maybe April, beginning of May, by the time mid-May came, especially being in the HVAC industry, it's an essential business. Like they're like, okay, we got rid of these people, we need them back. We need more
Yeah.
people. So like even though we were on pause, we're back. So I was back working again. The challenge I had in the very beginning part of that, though, was part of the CARES Act at the time, where the unemployment, um, some people wanted to work but couldn't because they had kids. Some people, to be honest, were making more on unemployment. And that
Yeah.
impacted some positions as far as like the office type positions. I didn't find it as much in finding technicians
Hmm.
because it's just one of those areas where most technicians, at least the ones I'm in contact with, want to work and they
Yeah.
just want to find the right place to work. But I had a little bit of that impact when that CARES Act, and they were making more. Now, what happened last summer when they stopped paying that extra 600 for CARES Act, a lot of highly qualified people were coming back into, they wanted to work. They knew they weren't going to get as much money. They were coming back, and I actually had really good applicants, a really good pool of applicants to work from, and I was able to place good people into really good companies. And then things like kind of were back and forth. So a similar situation is happening right now. Some people are making more on unemployment, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and others, but those aren't the people that I want. When
Yeah.
when I'm doing my recruiting and vetting for that, the kinds of questions I'm asking is, if they would rather be on unemployment, that's not who I want. I
Yeah.
want to give the best employee, give my recommendations to business owners, and the people I'm looking for really truly do want to work. So it's a bit of a challenge in some ways, but in other aspects, the right people are out there. It's just a matter of using the resources that I have to find those people. And it is a lot through networking, and also knowing how to um, navigate some of the software that the things like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, things like that.
Mhm.
LinkedIn. That's been a really good, actually. LinkedIn's right now one of the best sources for me right now, and it's more of the networking part of it.
Yeah.
So
That's really crazy. You know what?
mhm,
LinkedIn really is, just a really crazy tool. You know what I mean? I
yep,
never really realized it until probably like last year, honestly, like just the power of it, and to
yeah.
be able to use it.
Once
Sorry.
I got into recruiting, I really understood the power of what LinkedIn can really do.
It's insane.
Hmm.
And especially, to be able to kind of take what you do and really like magnify it, through like a social media like that.
Hmm.
It's crazy. Like, the sky's the limit, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I just think that's like super, super interesting, because I mean, like the demand is always going to be there, right? To
Mhm.
have like super quality people inside your business, whether it's, like you said, like at more administrative roles versus like technicians out in the field, like
Mhm.
people are always going to be like coming and going, right? So,
Yes.
and, kind of like to stem off of what you said earlier, about having like the time and the resources to do that yourself, I can imagine can be pretty tough with
Yeah.
everything that, you have going on and trying to set up and everything. And
The
wow.
biggest struggle that business owners are telling me is that they don't have the time to do it right.
Mhm.
Like they it's not like they don't know how to do it in many cases. It's the fact that there's a lot of background stuff that needs to be done, and I'm taking that stress away from them. I'm
Yeah.
vetting for those people who really are the tire kickers.
Yeah.
I'm going through,
Exactly.
there's a lot of time wasted doing that. And business owners, their money can be spent much more helping their team to get to the jobs that they have. They make way more money going out on the job rather than having to stop to take time to go through those tedious types of tasks. And
Yeah.
and that's one of the reasons why I felt like I could be very useful in this. And quite honestly, some of the business owners had said to me, especially in the more administrative roles, I really don't know what kind of things to ask. I know the tech side of things. I know
Yeah.
how to run that type of, but finding someone to answer the phones and finding someone to take care of the paperwork and that kind of stuff is a totally different kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when you find the right person who could do it, you can have a very well-oiled machine. It's just a matter of, some business owners don't realize that they don't have to wear every single hat.
Yeah.
I know in the beginning you feel like you do, but once you start in that growth mode and you realize when you give that up and give it to someone who could actually probably do it better than you, more efficiently than you,
Yeah.
your company's actually going to be more successful, and you could do more of the sales meetings. You could do more of that training, and cultivating a wonderful culture for your business rather than having to deal with those office type stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Especially it's nice to kind of see, like the perspective of like, maybe like two sides of a business. Yeah, like more like the tech side, as well as the actual, like processes and
Yep.
um, the more administrative like setup kind of stuff, and
Yep.
like you may be like extremely good at one, but not have the time for the other, or not as like not as good at it. But to be able to kind of balance those out is is essential, right?
Yep.
Especially like you said, to be able to kind of give some of those tasks to, other people and delegate them
Yep.
and use your time, kind of the best way as
Yes.
possible, right?
Yes. My very first client had never had anyone in the office. He was literally doing it all himself, and basically said, I don't even know how to research the best type of phone system or dispatching system. And basically, I said, well, that's where I can come in. I can help you find that person who's going to research that kind of stuff, help you set up that office,
Yeah.
because I personally have been in an office before. I've actually hired for people in office positions. So I know those kinds of things to look for. You could take that off of your plate, and when I find you that right person, you're going to see how your company is going to be running a lot more smoothly. And that's literally what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's really cool too about how like you said, like you were like actually in that role before, when you were working for, like the school system and stuff.
Yep.
And like you were like in the trenches, like doing
Yep.
that job, like you were there.
Yep.
Would you say that like that kind of helped you out like a lot, having, done stuff like that before and like rather than like just kind of jumping in, like
Exactly.
that experience?
That, and also I've actually taken on part-time job as a receptionist
Mhm.
and an office person. So yes, in the administrative role I've done that, but I've also actually sat in the chair, been the person to answer the phone, find getting the person to the right person who needs to do that, and also doing that office work. So I know the skills that are necessary
Yeah.
to do those positions, whereas a business owner doesn't necessarily know that part of it.
Yeah.
So like that's the skill that I can bring into helping that business owner out.
That is amazing, Renee.
Mhm.
To kind of stem into the next question, what is your drive and your vision for the long term?
For the long term, I really want to be seen as the premier hiring consultant for the HVAC industry. It's starting to happen as I build that network, um, and build those relationships. I can see that happening, and throughout the state of Massachusetts. I really do want to be seen as that premier person. I think that that's a really good goal, and to be honest, that's a short-term goal. I can see myself as expanding, nationwide and doing
Yeah,
that.
that's phenomenal. And like you said, it definitely is starting to happen. Having clients in Texas and in Florida, and
Yep.
wow,
Hmm.
that is incredible. Ooh, what are your thoughts on building relationships and expanding your network? I know,
Oh my
we've kind
goodness.
of hammered on this one
I just
quite a bit already.
honestly, it's huge. Okay. The way that I started this business is because of my networks and building those relationships. Had I not had that initial conversation with the person in my BNI chapter about, what did I do in the past? How do we make this happen? It wouldn't have happened. Ella Services would not have happened if it were not for those relationships. Had I not had that conversation with my friend in the industry, in the HVAC industry, I wouldn't have decided to, really move on and have HVAC as my niche. That person introduced me to a few people that he knew. From that, it expanded to more and more, and I just developed those relationships. Now I can really see myself, getting excited when someone says they have someone going to school for HVAC. I'm like, put them in contact with me, even though they haven't even graduated yet. They're just starting. Have them reach out to me. I can help them in the future. I might even be able to help them get an internship. It's just, I get really excited about networking and connecting with people in the industry, because you don't know where it leads. And I'll give you one example. In my former career
Yep.
in the school systems, I actually used to work with babies and toddlers with children who had developmental disabilities.
Hmm.
And one of the students that I was working with, he was 2 years old at the time. Um, I stayed connected with his mother. And his mother happened to be on social media posting, my son has just got accepted in the HVAC program at, Bay Path. And I'm so excited for him. And I reached out and said, I am so excited to hear that. Number one, I love to hear what happens with, these little babies when I'm working, what happens as they get older. Um, but I said, I might be able to help them. I'm so excited. I'm in that industry. I'm actually now in the process of connecting them. And this was about 10 years ago when I actually worked with this little boy.
Hmm.
Um, I'm now actually in a position where I can help him. And that's because of the relationships that I built. It all goes back to building those relationships, staying in contact, and because you just don't know what the future is going to bring.
Those those type of things are so cool when that happens.
Mhm.
To literally like, like take care of, this person like a long, long, long time ago,
Mhm.
and then to be able to like still, um, like follow up and stuff like that,
Yep.
and like reconnect like years later. That's like the
Yes,
coolest thing in the world.
it is.
You're
I
so
do get
right,
excited about that. Yes.
Yeah, like you're right. You honestly like never know like where things are gonna reach. And one thing that I've been kind of big on is it only takes one conversation with one person to completely change everything, like you said,
Exactly.
talking to that person from like your BNI chapter, and your friend who was like in the HVAC field.
Yep.
You had two conversations and are now like taking care of clients like across the country. You know what
Yep.
I mean? Like it's crazy.
It
It's
starts
it's
like,
unbelievable.
yeah,
Yeah.
it starts small and then just expands. And it's really about taking the action. Like you something happens, you make that connection, and it's literally a decision away. On, decided to take action. Things just start to fall into place when you make those moves like that.
It's such a beautiful thing. It really is.
Mhm.
Especially when you love doing that too. You know
Yep.
what I mean? You're like, oh, that's really cool. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah. What do you consider to be the biggest variable in expanding your clientele?
I think the biggest thing is if I've had success in like helping them find either an office person or their operations manager, them reaching back out and say, okay, you help me with that, can you help me find a technician? And when that happens, they start to tell other people that they know in the industry, well, this person helped me. And even when it doesn't work out, because I would love to say I've had 100% success, but I have not. But interestingly enough, I literally had one of the people I was working with, and it didn't work out. It was office person that just didn't work out. He actually referred me to someone else, not because of the fact that it didn't work out, but I think that he learned that both of us needed more information.
Mhm.
And the reason why it didn't work out is the wrong person was put in there, but we both learned from that. And how it was dealt with, again, goes back to the relationship. But
Yeah,
he really realized someone else needed help, and he still thought of me to refer me because of the fact that you learn from your mistakes, you learn from. And we both did, and he was still referring me even after that. So that shows to me that if you handle things right, even when things go wrong, you can still get a lesson out of that, and some good things still happen from that.
that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, it really is crazy. Like, to kind of look at something like that, like bigger picture, like even if something didn't really work out, but like just, I guess like the way you dealt with it and like, your personality and stuff and just kind of like taking care of it, you know what I mean? Like and for that relationship to still be there and still be building,
Yeah.
because he thought of you and everything is
Yeah.
it's
Well, I
awesome.
owned
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
When I knew that it didn't work out, I
Yeah.
basically took a 100% responsibility for that. and said, listen, this didn't work out. I could find you someone else. You can find someone on your own. They actually ended up finding someone else on their own, which is still great. I still feel that that's a success for them. But I just, you have to take ownership of,
Yeah.
of something like that. And I think that's the only way you're going to actually stay in business, is when things don't go right or the way you expected. You just have to accept that and take responsibility for it and just move on.
Yeah. I'm sure you can agree not everything is going to go 100% smooth as planned, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Not in life, not in business.
Yeah. Ooh, what is the most important lesson that you have learned over your career?
I think one of the biggest ones is literally what I just talked about. I've learned more from my mistakes than from my successes. And I've also learned that everything builds off of something else. Like, I started out my career in entrepreneurism, actually in a completely different field from even internet marketing. I started out as a consultant in the health industry. That expanded into consulting with internet marketers. That expanded into consulting with more local business owners in HVAC. But every single thing was a progression, and it's skills that I learned. And the other thing is, a lot of people think, oh, if someone heard my story from the very beginning, oh, she's an overnight success. No. No, there's no such thing as an overnight success. It's years of the learning from the other businesses
Yeah.
prior, and the mistakes I made in that, and the lessons I learned from that, and the skills that I developed over time, that brought me to, okay, yeah, I have a business that started from scratch, and it went relatively quickly, but that took 10 years prior to get to
Yeah.
that point. A lot of that knowledge was from that prior experience that got me there, and the networks that I had already started to develop.
I couldn't
And a
agree
lot of
more.
people don't share that part of the story.
Yeah. I feel like that's a really big one too. Is, a lot of people just kind of want to, show off like that thing that they created and everything. And but like it's the stuff that like you don't see like behind closed doors, like.
Mhm.
And it's so crazy too, like you're saying, like basically the stepping stones, like how things in your life connect, from doing like one thing here and, maybe 10 years down the road, like you might take a skill from like that first thing and be like, oh, I know how to do that,
Mhm.
and now it's like twice as applicable. And, like the compounding of the knowledge and the skills, is crazy, and
The skill I took from being an administrator in the school system is
yeah.
literally, like, I didn't know then that I would use that as a hiring consultant. Yes, I built from that skill, but literally everything builds from that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's nuts.
Hmm.
Ooh, Renee, how do you define wealth?
Um, I would say, I mean, there's mixed emotions about this, because it's basically what you value. It could be possessions, it could be money, but wealth could also be knowledge that you have. It could also be the relationships that you've developed. I think for me, my biggest wealth is my knowledge. And honestly, I started as an entrepreneur in the health industry. I think my biggest wealth is my health. Because if I don't have health, it doesn't matter what kind of
You're
business
right,
I
yeah.
have. So I think it really depends on where your passion is and what you value the most as wealth. If you were talking to my grandmother, her wealth is in her family. She has a huge family. She comes from a big family. So her wealth is like the number of people in her family. Um, if you talk to other people, it could be the land that they own. It could be, the real estate and the properties they own. I think for me, more my biggest wealth, I would say, are my relationships and my knowledge that have developed from that.
Those are priceless. I feel like that's a really big one that like isn't really talked about as often, your health,
Hmm.
because you're right, like how much can you do if, your health isn't really the best, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like you
But
sorry.
I was gonna say, some of the biggest lessons I learned in my first business as a health consultant was because I was going through some health challenges. Um, and who knew that I would learn from that and turn that into a business and then expand upon that. But again, if I didn't take care of my health, who knows if I'd even still be here today.
You're right. Yeah, I feel like that's a really big thing, just to kind of have that balance and I guess the self-awareness of, like a lot of things going on, like, oh, like, can I handle this? Like, am I doing all right? And
Mhm.
to keep it sustainable, and just kind of see, like what you can deal with, like what's worth dealing with, what's not worth dealing with. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really big one. I like that one.
And it takes a lot of self-assessment
Yeah.
to be in that mode where you really can sit back and say, where am I going with my health?
Yeah.
I've had some tough conversations with myself. I've also had tough conversations with God and
Yeah.
saying, what's really happening. And if you're if you're not in a mode in the right mindset to actually look at whether you do need to improve and want to improve, um, you can go one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so it is really important. Health is not just physical. It's more of it could be mindset health. And when I was in having some challenges, it was both. It was a both physical and a mental thing where I had to really come to terms with myself and do some self-assessment and say, where am I going with this? You know, am I willing to do what it's going to take to improve my health? And I
Yeah.
luckily made the decision to do something about my health, and that turned things around. It actually opened up my eyes on more mindset work. Once you start to uncover that, you find more things you need to work on. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
But through each of those challenges, I've learned so much from it. I can't think of it as I regret that, because I don't. I'm actually grateful for those experiences and challenges that I've had, because it's made me become who I am right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree, that's a huge thing. Like if especially like you said with the mindset. The mindset in itself is a really, really big thing. If you don't have the mindset, then it's great to have like a bunch of knowledge and, all these visions and everything. But if you don't have the mindset to push through, some of the
Mhm.
times where it's not so good, then
Yeah,
where are you gonna be? And that
exactly.
stems from, having like good health, mentally and physically as well.
Yep.
I
I
really
know
like
there's
that
a
one.
lot of people out there who would rather just quit. And don't get me wrong, I've quit things in the past myself, but you know, what I've learned is the way that you actually get through it is to just push through it. Yeah, I've had moments of tears. I've had
Yeah.
moments of breakdowns,
Yeah.
but the only way to get through it is to actually just get through it. Have that breakdown if you need to. Have the tears, have the moment, get through that, and then move on.
Yeah.
And not everyone's willing to do that. I think it takes the right mindset to be an entrepreneur, because it's not easy. Okay, you're
You're
going
right.
to fail, you're going to have challenges, and the ones that push through those challenges are the ones who succeed.
Yeah, you're definitely right. You know, wait, it's not always, Lamborghinis and, what?
No, that would be awesome if it was, but then where's the fun in that? That's like, it's not a good journey. Might be fun for
Exactly.
the short term.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Renee. I don't really get to have that conversation that often. That one doesn't come up, I feel like, as much as it should. That's a really big one,
Yeah.
That's huge. Wow.
Well, not a lot of people want to talk about it because it's the non-sexy part, I guess you could
Right.
say, of the process of being a business owner, or just any challenge in life, is that you have to go through the hard times. Nobody really wants to talk about that. But you have to,
Yeah.
because that's just part of your journey and that's part of your story. That's what makes you who you are right now.
Yep. It is, and like you just said, like the more times like that that you push through, like the stronger you become as a person, and the more you can deal with, and I mean, having that self-awareness and those conversations can definitely be very difficult. But like if you're able to like develop that skill of being able to, just kind of take a step back and be like, all right, like what's going on? Like what do I have to fix? Like what's a little unbalanced in my life? Like what do I have to pay more attention to? And I feel like that's a really big thing in itself.
Yeah.
And like you said, like not everybody like wants to have those conversations because, oftentimes they're not easy.
No. About 4 years ago, I made the decision to actually really work on that,
Mhm.
intensely on mindset. And I didn't do it by myself. I had to reach out to mentors, people who've been there before, who've gone through things and challenges. Um, I truly feel that the most successful people always have mentors in their life that they can, bounce ideas off. Talk to when you are having a challenge.
Yeah.
Obviously you have to do the work on yourself, but it's good to have that other person or people, to really be able to reach out to when you're having those rough moments.
Yeah, that's huge because, oftentimes those people have been through that exact same thing,
Hmm.
and like they might not think that it's that bad because they've been through that a couple times. They'd be like, all right, it's not too bad, like just to see see it through another set of eyes,
Yep.
potentially like a more experienced set of eyes that have been through something like that before.
Yep.
That's a really big thing. And, just to kind of hear their thoughts on it and stuff.
Hmm. It's been incredibly important for me, I can say. I wouldn't be as far as I am right now without mentors.
Totally. I feel like one thing too, not to kind of go down another rabbit hole, but like in terms of like finding mentors, I feel like it's at least from kind of my experience, like it's been a lot easier than kind of people make it out to be, like just to kind of like make those relationships and stuff and just be able to help each other out and like,
Yep.
just be around like-minded people and stuff. Like even in those like networking groups, like that's how Renee and I met. It was in
Yep.
I forget which one it was, but
I,
whatever.
I don't remember either, to be honest.
But yeah, like just and a lot of those times too, like those kind of things are free. Social media, like the amount of
Yep.
people that, yeah, I'm sure you can agree as well. The amount of people that like we've met through social media is like it's like unsurmountable. And social media is free. Like go make an Instagram account, go make a LinkedIn account, look up, like HVAC, operations managers and, shoot the breeze with them. If people don't
Yep.
respond, all right, whatever. You don't want to work with them anyways.
Right.
But the ones who do respond, that's where it gets crazy.
Yep. And that's
Because
literally, when I started in internet marketing, that's literally how I started to develop relationships. I literally just would reach out and just trying to make connections, see who, would respond. You know, and as far as like finding mentors, I really feel like you find them, they find you, in
yeah,
mysterious ways. And
yep.
it's just sometimes it's a small little connection, that just makes it happen. And you just start communicating, and it's either going to develop into like a mentor mentee relationship or not, or maybe it's just a business relationship. Sometimes it develops into more, but
Yeah.
you don't know if you don't take the step and
Hmm.
and do it. I found my online mentor literally from watching a series of YouTube videos and saying, what, I can relate to that person. This person, has qualities, this person is persistent.
Yeah.
If this person can do it, I can do it. I found my, mentor, my business mentor in the HVAC industry because it was a friend of mine.
Hmm.
We just had similar things that, we were passionate about, or, they just start to develop. There's and I don't know who said it. um, when the student is ready, the teacher will come, or vice versa. When the teacher is ready, the student will come, something like
Yeah.
to that effect. It just starts to organically happen at the right moment in time.
It does. I feel like, everything kind of happens for a reason too. And especially with something like that, like if you're putting the work in and reaching out to people, like eventually something's gonna hit.
Yeah.
And the ROI is usually, well, it can be pretty ridiculous. Because stemming back to something that you said earlier, having like that one conversation with somebody like that just hit it off with could
Hmm.
turn into like two or three more people. And then
Yeah.
it literally just like fans out like a tree, and like off of one conversation. Like
Yeah.
it blows my mind,
Yeah. I mean,
like
in my business actually was a collaboration of idea eventually, because it started with one person, and then another person got involved, and we just said, let's just do this. It just
yeah,
makes sense to do that. So yeah, it does start one way and then expands from that.
it really does. It's wow. What is something that you thought about business, networking, or wealth creation that changed as you went along?
um I guess I used to think that it was about the money, you know accumulating money was really where it's at, if and that it your your knowledge, your network is your money. But it's more it's more about like the person that you're becoming. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're going to make money, but it's more about, who are you becoming as a person? What is your reputation? What are people going to remember that you do and do well? Or what are people going to remember about, what you're doing for the community? The money will come when the right folks just get involved in the
yeah.
process. So and the other part of it is I also learned just from reading the book, um, the uh,
Is it
Babylon.
the
Yeah,
richest man in Babylon?
the richest man in
Yeah, I
Babylon,
love that one.
about saving money and things like that. Like I really didn't have any concept about saving money until that book.
Yeah,
So that opened my eyes on, I really do need to save, and I really need to contribute. This percentage goes to charity, this percentage goes to paying myself, this percentage goes to paying the bills and things like that. Until I read that book, I was all over the place. I really didn't have a plan. I didn't have a savings, and I learned that you do have to treat money as, you do need money to survive, but it cannot be the only thing that drives you to
yeah.
success.
That's a really big one. That was actually the second like business book that I ever read. Like the first one was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And
Mm-hmm. It's another
yeah,
good one.
that was another book that like really hammered on mindset like super early. It's
Yep.
just hearing like the principles, and I forget when that book was written. I want to say it was like in the 1930s or 40s or something like that.
I have
I
it
don't
on my
remember.
shelf. I could go look, but I don't know. It's a classic,
It
and
is.
every person should be reading that book.
I
I'm
agree.
just if you're interested in wealth and you're interested in really being a success, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, agree. Another great book.
Oh yeah, that's a really big one.
Hmm.
Yep. Um, we kind of talked about this one quite a bit, but what values are most important to you when it comes to doing business? I know we kind of hammered on that one quite a bit.
Yeah, but to expand on it, I would say you have to have integrity,
Mhm.
be honest, um, be authentic. Really don't promise things you can't deliver. You've got to know your industry, and if you don't know it, you've got to be willing to learn. um, I guess the other key is never stop learning, because if you stop learning, you're in dying mode. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But it really starts with, be true to yourself, be authentic. um, that's how you're going to develop those relationships. If you pretend to be something you're not, you might get away with it for a little bit, but it's not going to last. you
Yep.
know, people are going to start to see those true colors. And the only way you're going to stay in business is if you are true to, you know, who you are, what you can deliver. Um, yeah.
That's so true. I really like what you said about like the sustainability too. Like, if you're doing things with kind of the wrong, um, trying to figure out how
The
to
wrong
word it.
intention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. With the wrong intentions in mind, yeah, it might work out in the short term, but good luck having it work out in the long term. Like eventually, like people are gonna find out, like what kind of person you are, especially like as you grow or whatever, whether it's out of good intentions or not so good intentions. And I actually kind of wanted to mention this earlier, but I kind of forgot. But it fits right in with this. So I thought it was interesting kind of what you said about, being like less focused on the money as well, because like if you're just doing like, the right things, like the right long-term, like persistent actions,
Yeah.
with the good intentions, the money does come, and like just from, focusing on like your values and like, how you carry yourself and like what kind of services you're providing for people. And it just kind of happens in the background, and like
It
it
does.
becomes less of the focus. It just
Right.
kind of happens. Like it's really crazy to go like that too, like just to kind of, I guess, put money, like focus a lot less on money and more on, the stuff that matters. And like that, it just kind of happens, like over time eventually, like
Yeah. When I'm focusing on serving others
yeah.
and providing that solution, the money does come. Don't get me wrong. I want to make money.
Oh, of
Okay.
course,
I
yeah.
don't, I didn't get into business to do this for free. But when my focus is finding a solution for someone and really serving someone the best way that I can, then the money does come.
Yeah.
Because I will be paid for the services. And I've literally had clients tell me, I'm going to pay you more. Like this was unheard of like years ago. But, I literally had a client say, I know you charge me this, but I'm going to pay you more because you provided this. And that was an eye opener for me. It actually made me think about, okay, maybe I need to really think about what I'm charging. Maybe there's a different way that I can, do my approach to, how I'm paid. It really made me think of that.
Yeah.
But that was such valuable information. Like that statement and that information coming from that client was so valuable to me that it made me improve my business. Again, it's another learning experience on again, I had the relationship with the client, who said, yeah, I'm going to pay you more. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Thank you, I appreciate that. Maybe I need to look into some things. And I did. I actually ended up restructuring my payment system because of that. And it makes more sense now.
Yeah. That's really cool though. Like just to be able to kind of see like a disconnect, and it just kind of makes you think about like different things, I guess. Like, somebody like offering to pay you more, like, for the service that you provided because of the way that you provided it.
Mhm.
It just like it's mind blowing, just to kind of think like outside the box. Like these people were so blown away at what I did for them that they wanted to pay more.
Yeah.
Like, and just to kind of focus, I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but it's more focused on like just the principles and the like the concepts like of providing, the best service that you can, and like less about like the money.
Right.
It,
And
like you
it
said, just kind of an eye opener.
Yeah, it really made me see, what? I really did serve my client.
Yeah.
It made me feel good inside that they could say that to me, because it helped me to see, okay, these are really good things that I'm doing for others. These are really good things, in my business. But I also saw, okay, you know what? I have to fix some things, that, to make things better. Or maybe I just need to change my payment system, or maybe I need to do this. So it was an eye opener. I learned from my clients as much as they learn from me. So again, it goes back to the relationships that you have
Yep.
and you develop over time.
That's huge. Yeah, especially, kind of like you just said, like just to be able to, step out of the box, for a second to like analyze the different situations that you come across, and just see like, how you can improve different systems and everything, like just from being in those situations, and learning from them, just as much as they learn from you. That's wicked cool.
Yeah.
Um, Last but not least, Renee. So we kind of got into this a little. Do you read? And what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone?
I read all the time.
If you had to pick
It's
one.
literally one of my daily routine. I have a routine in my day, and reading is definitely on that routine.
Oh yeah,
I'm actually going to show it. I don't know if you could see it, and I'm hoping that it doesn't come out backwards. But The Law of
I can see
Success,
it.
16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill, is a
Ooh.
very thick book. I wouldn't pick this up as your first reading material if you're getting into entrepreneurism, but there's so much information in here and so much knowledge. I truly feel this should be taught in high school.
Yeah.
Every single person, whether you're building a business or not, just success in life, this should be studied. It's not going to be, but if I were running a school,
It would be.
it would be, because um, everything you really need to know about success is in here. It's literally broken down. I don't know if you've ever actually read this book, and it is a classic. I will look at the year that it was written. Um,
I haven't
Originally,
read that Napoleon Hill book. I've read Think and
okay.
Grow Rich. I haven't read
Yep,
that one though. I'll
yep.
definitely throw
This
that one
came
on the list.
before. This came before Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
Oh gosh, it doesn't have the original. I have the No, I don't have the first. No, I don't have it. But
That's
this is
okay.
old.
Yeah.
I think this was written in the 1920s or 1930s, because it's Napoleon Hill and he's
Sure.
long
Yeah.
gone. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm very interested about that one. I'll have to pick that one up. I haven't
yep.
read that one yet. I
It's
like to
it's
see,
going to take a long time to read because it is thick,
yeah.
and you have to be someone who's really passionate about reading success books to get
Yeah.
into it. But yeah, it breaks things down as far as, it talks about integrity, it talks about, being consistent, it talks about everything you need to know and do to be successful. It talks about building relationships, being true to yourself. um Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very interested in that one. I'll have to pick that one up. See,
Yep.
that's another one that, was written a long time ago. And the principles are still as strong as they, today as they were back then. The same
So
with like the richest
relevant.
man in Babylon. It's just
Mhm.
a different way of writing it,
Yep.
like, yeah. Definitely check that one out, guys. I definitely am gonna put that one on the list. I'm
Awesome.
reading there's another big one that I'm reading right now that's kind of been kicking my butt because it's taken a while. It's the 4 Hour Work Week.
Oh, I have that on my shelf as well.
I really
Absolutely.
like it so far. There's a ton of information in it, but it
Yes.
is on the longest side.
Yep. I agree.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on here, Renee. It really was a pleasure. I could talk to you for hours.
Yeah, no,
It,
I've enjoyed this too. It's been very enlightening for me too. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Now, is there where can you be reached on, social media, like you, the business?
So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. That tends to be the biggest social media that I use.
Hmm.
Um, I have a company page, Ella Services, and also Renee Sullivan on just plain old Renee Sullivan, I believe. Um, but I am on Facebook a little bit. I'm just not as consistent with that one. I
Yeah.
do have a website. It is ellaserviceshiring.com. So you can also go there. I will be doing a rebranding eventually over the summer, but for now, that's definitely where you can reach me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely link all of those below. And I'm very much looking forward to the kind of the rebranding and what you
Yeah,
decide to do too. I can't wait.
me too.
But yeah, thank you so much again, Renee. It really was a pleasure. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, guys, that concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully, you can take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Bigger Pockets. Until next time, let's build together.